Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are open here just a few minutes early. I'm Sloan Sorbana. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to sit back and just wait a few more minutes until 2 o'clock to get started so everybody can kind of get logged in and situated. So we're glad you're here, and we'll be underway in just a couple of minutes. You guys have to know that it's April and I am having student withdrawals. I have not seen our students for so long. Hi, Haley. All right, it's 2 o'clock. We are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Sloan Sorbana. I'm the Director of Career Development at your association at Washington Multifamily, and we're just thrilled to have you here for our 6 Feet Apart webinar series. I'm really excited today about our guest panelists. We have Jen Piccotti and Kara Rice with Swift Bunny. Some of you may remember Jen. She's been a guest presenter for us before and has always brought us really great information. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say today about leading with compassion. I know, like all of you, I probably feel the same way in that these are just unprecedented times, and leading people right now is just next level. And so I know they're going to have some great nuggets to share with us today. I just want to do a couple of quick housekeeping things before I hand it over to them. First of all, just as a reminder, this is a webinar, and so we can't see you or hear you, but you do have ways to interact with us. So I want to outline those for you quickly. On the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A bubble. You can click on that anytime today in the presentation and ask us questions. We will be taking and answering most of those towards the end of the session, but feel free to go ahead and drop those in there anytime as it comes to you. And also there's a way for you to like a question that's already been asked. When you do that, it tells our panelists what questions are most important to the entire group. So feel free to do that as well. We invite you to leave the chat room empty of questions. Use the Q&A feature for that, because we'll be using the chat room for other things, including dropping some resources and links there for you as well. The best way for you to view this webinar today is if you go up to view options and click exit from full screen, then you can click on chat on the bottom, and that will orient your screen where you'll have the chat on the right. You'll have the slides from our guest presenters in the in the bigger part, and you'll be able to see whoever's talking across the top. So that's the best way for you to do that today. Again, let's go ahead and just try out the chat. Oh, hi, Cindy. Just to make sure everybody's got the chat box where they want it and then they can see it, go ahead and just type one word that describes how you're feeling right this moment. Optimistic, overwhelmed. I hear you on that one.
Dirty.
Dirty.
Sleepy.
Pascal, excited. Need a siesta. I know that afternoon coffee's got to happen here pretty quick.
COVID. I like how COVID is now an adjective.
I know.
Yes.
I'm feeling that too. All right. Well, thanks for playing along. Last couple of things. We love to see and hear our members enjoying what we're doing. So Kelly has asked me to share with you an opportunity to just share on social if you're a social media person enjoying this webinar today. So if you take a picture of your screen or anything like that and post it to Instagram or Facebook, just use the hashtags WeAreWMFA or hashtag WMFA 6 Feet Apart. I've dropped that in the chat box for you. We'd appreciate that. At the end of today, there will be a short survey that pops up, 3 questions, less than 30 seconds, but it's very helpful for us in planning our future 6 Feet Apart series. And I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over now to Kara as we get started.
Excellent. Thank you, Sloan. And thank you, WMFA, for having us. And a huge thanks to all of you for making time to be here with Jen and me today. I know finding time for continuing education is always a challenge, and I would wager that you are busier than you have ever been. So the fact that you've made time to be here with us today is really remarkable, and we are grateful. And it's our mission to make sure that it is time well spent. So today's session, we are here to talk about leading with compassion, property management under stress. And based on how you described yourself in the chat a moment ago, I think you are in the right place. So we've got some great information to share with you today. First, just a quick introduction. I'm Kara Rice, and I am the Chief Communications Officer with Swift Bunny. And I am coming to you from sunny South Florida. So I'm about as far away as I possibly could be from you guys. But it is a joy to be with you and virtually see you here. And as I was joking with Sloan and Jen earlier, it's actually really nice to see some faces, Sloan and Jen, of people with whom I do not live and haven't been quarantined for the last 30 days. So that's a joy. So welcome, Jen.
Absolutely.
I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Piccotti, and I've had the pleasure of being with you in person over the past several years, and I look forward to that opportunity again in the future. But for now, I am so happy, as Kara said, to be here with you all virtually. I'm coming to you from Orange County, California. So we've got some sunshine. Hopefully, Kara and I can be bringing some of those sunshine rays to all of you in Washington today.
Great. Thank you, Jen. All right, so let's kick things off here with a description. It's a saying for times like these, and the saying is this: a system under pressure reveals its cracks. So I think it's fair to say that the apartment industry has perhaps never been under as immense pressure as we are today as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. So it's been about 2.5 months, I think, since that first case of coronavirus presented itself right in your great state, Washington. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that bit. And in the ensuing months and weeks, just about everything about our lives has been turned really upside down. So it's making your workplaces vastly different than they were at the beginning of the year, and the challenges just don't seem to stop. So today, what Jen and I want to do is spend some time sharing some feedback from the front lines, let you know what property management folks, your peers all across the nation, how they are feeling and how they are faring with what is kind of our new normal for these times. And we also want to offer some guidance for you on what you can do as a leader to help your team thrive under these very, very challenging circumstances. So while we have never had a crisis as extreme as this one, I think that's fair to say, certainly we've all been through crises in the past, whether it's something that's kind of on a societal scale like 9/11, or maybe something more personal like a death in the family. And in times of crisis, there are really two possible directions that either individuals or teams can take in response. And the first one is like this: fear and helplessness. So it's that urge that you have to kind of withdraw and maybe curl up in a ball and hope that the bad stuff is going to go away. And I will be perfectly honest and tell you that I've had moments like this during this pandemic where I've been really tempted to just kind of climb into bed and say, wake me up next week or next month when this is all over. And I'm guessing that some of you have probably felt some of that as well. The second response that individuals or teams can take in times of crisis is on the other end of the spectrum here, and it's one of engagement and empowerment. So this is when people really feel energized with a sense of purpose, of diving in and wanting to be a part of the solution. So can you think of somebody in your life that you might describe as being really good in a crisis? I know that my husband is one of those people. Like, he's the person that you want to call if you have a flat tire on the side of the road, right? He really rises to the occasion. Whatever that crisis is, he's the person that you want to have on your cell phone so you can reach out to him and he'll come in to swoop in and save the day. So engagement and empowerment is what we're talking about when we say somebody's good in a crisis. So we want to spend some time with you today to talk about how to be good in a crisis and how to kind of inspire your teams to also be good in a crisis. And it's what researchers describe as the rally effect, right? When people actually feel energized and get kind of an adrenaline rush by pitching in and being a part of the solution and working through that crisis together. So whether individuals or teams respond and give in to kind of that fear and hopelessness, or whether they can feel engaged and empowered has a lot to do about the traits that their leaders exhibit. So let's look at the traits that empower teams to high performance and to really being a part of the solution. So the traits that we're going to look at today come to us from the Gallup organization, and they have identified these 4 traits which teams value all of the time, but especially in times of crisis, they are particularly important among leaders. And the first one is trust. It's very important that teams trust that their leaders are capable and have the team's best interests at heart. And the second one is compassion, which of course was in our title for today's session, leading with compassion. We want to make sure that you're putting people first, whether that's the people you supervise or your residents and customers. Also stability, and I know nothing feels stable right now, but as a leader, that is something that you want to bring to the table, is a sense of stability where you can. And then finally, hope. You certainly want to be able to offer some hope to your teams who desperately need it right now. I'm going to pass it over to Jen for a few minutes. Jen, go ahead.
All right, so we are going to go into a poll, and we want to gauge your temperature when you think about your teams, and we want to find out, in your opinion, what are your teams most worried about right now? So Sloan's going to pull up a poll, and we'd love for you to go ahead and vote. And this is just what, from your opinion, what are your teams most worried about right now? All right, we see some votes coming in. Ooh,
There
here
is
they
a
come.
lot to be worried about right now. It's kind of hard to pick, huh?
I know, it's true. All right, we'll give you 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Oh, let's see where we land. All right, so it looks like 30% say the uncertainty all around. I can totally relate to that. 25% say personal health and safety. And then we have a tie for the possibility of losing a job and the new challenges in the workplace. And 5% say the health and safety of residents. And all of this absolutely makes sense. There is a lot of uncertainty. And what we'd like to share, I'm going to go ahead and put this poll away if I can. At Swift Bunny, we are in the employee feedback business. And so we have been working with our clients to reach out and find out through employee surveys, how are their teams holding up? What are the support needs that they have? And so what we want to do today, because we thought it would be valuable to help share some of these things, some real world comments that apartment community frontline teams have shared regarding the variety of stresses that they're facing right now. And by hearing what other people are going through, this may give you some insight on how best to support your own teams and inspire their own rally effect that Kara was talking about earlier. So the first category of feedback that we got was around team support. We measured how associates felt that their employees were supporting them. And it turns out that associates have a lot of practical suggestions. You know, there's a lot of theory, but it was really interesting to see what are the practical suggestions that frontline employees are suggesting to. This is what would really help us right here, right now. So we want to share some specific quotes with you. First one, this person says, I think we should have a fever check before we're allowed to clock in. So obviously, this individual and many of our employees are worried about their own health. They're also worried about that of their coworkers and how this is going to impact not only within the team, but how this could really spread to their own families. Another quote is, we need better masks. The homemade ones don't seem like they'll adequately protect us. This is something that's coming up a lot. I don't know about what's happening in Washington, but in California, we're being asked not to go out unless we're wearing a mask. So they want us all to be wearing masks in public. And so this is becoming a more common, not only, but in some cases a requirement. And so how are we enabling our teams? I actually posted in multifamily share space yesterday, said, how are you guys all handling this? The need and the request for masks, for personal protective equipment on site. So that's information that you can be thinking about and making decisions about within your own organizations, providing guidance, providing input, and maybe in some cases actually providing the equipment to your team. So these are some practical things that they're looking for. Another comment, we need sanitizing stations in high traffic areas or strategic locations to help protect common areas and surroundings. So a lot of the things that employees are asking for or hoping for, they're not necessarily pie in the sky. They're really practical day to day. What are some specific tools, specific support around just our own basic needs? So we want to switch gears a little bit and look at another area that we're hearing a lot about. I'll turn it over to Kara.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. So we also asked in these employee surveys that we conducted about communication. So the types of communication, whether our teams feel like they're getting enough information during the pandemic. So it's really important that leaders are using every possible channel that they can to get information out to their teams. Because of course, nobody, for the most part, we're not face-to-face any longer, right? Or you're working, if you are still having teams go into the office, there may only be one person at a time. So much for the morning huddle that you're accustomed to, right? You've got to find other ways to get your messages across. So we are lucky that in today's day and age, we have a lot of methods for doing so, and we should be utilizing all of them, right? To make sure that everybody is in the loop on all of the important information that's happening all the time. So teams had a lot to say about how that is going at the moment, and here are some of their comments. Here's the first one: too many emails and calls. It's hard to get anything done because of calls and video calls all day long. It's stressful. All right, so I will say that in my humble opinion, it's always better to over communicate than to under communicate. But I think we might be going to the extreme right now and really over communicating, if that's possible, right? Jen and I have had conversations to this extent, and I actually had a conversation with some friends this weekend when we were meeting via Zoom, because that's how you meet with your friends now, right? Well, now that the world is upside down. But we were talking about workplaces, and this was outside of multifamily, where it feels like people are calling all kinds of meetings that they never had before. It's almost as if people are feeling like they have to prove that they're working, and they do that by scheduling a video conference. And that can be really burdensome to teams who are trying to get their work done, trying to support residents, possibly, likely have family members, children underfoot, right? So all of these extra calls and meetings can be super stressful. So you want to be sensitive to that and everything that your teams are juggling. Here's a similar comment. I think my emails have tripled since we started working from home. It's overwhelming. Can anybody appreciate that sentiment? I think it might be a little bit of that same sort of sense that people want to demonstrate and prove that they are working. So just because you're working from home doesn't mean that it's all of a sudden okay to hit reply all on all of your emails. It's still not okay to do that, okay? Let's have mercy on everybody's inboxes. All right, and the third one here, creating a new policy and then changing it every week is difficult to keep up with, especially the impact on our residents. Ooh, that is a doozy, and understandable, because all of a sudden we have to address all kinds of things that we have not had to address before. So sure, there's a flurry of new policies coming out, and then you realize that that policy didn't quite fit, so you have to adapt it and switch it up, which is necessary, but it's also really destabilizing to your operations, right? And also, I know that this one is hitting with a lot of you and is true from coast to coast, and that is because it has been turned into a meme. How many of you guys saw this one hit your social feeds last week?
Yes.
Essential workers trying to process the 35th policy change in the last 3 weeks. Is that true or what, right? So keep in mind, one of those traits that we talked about early on here that teams are looking for from their leaders right now is stability. There's a lot that's unstable in the world. I get it. But anything that you can do to make things feel as stable as they can and to minimize disruption for your team members will be welcome. Jen, what's next?
Right. So the next group of topics that we gleaned from our employee surveys is well-being. And here's what they had to say about that. Let's check out some of our quotes here. I'm grateful to be working and receiving a paycheck, but I'd feel much safer if I could do my job from home. I'm scared for myself and my family. And this is it's such an interesting time because we haven't had to face this before, and having to make these decisions about who can work from home, what are the appropriate guidelines, what are the expectations. These are things that people are having to put into place very quickly. And so some people are saying, okay, I feel like I could work from home, but I'm actually having to be on site. Maintenance team members are like, well, I have to be on site. It would be great if I could work from home, but maintenance is physical. So there's a lot of this sense of, I am grateful for my job. We know so many people who've been losing their jobs or been furloughed, a lot of these different things. And so there's this tug of war internally of saying, I'm grateful for what I have, but I'm also nervous. I'm also scared about what that means, what comes along with the job. Another thing that we have read, some of us don't have the tools to work from home efficiently. I had to set up a home office, which was a significant unexpected expense, the last thing I need right now. And this is a really valid concern. People who had never dreamed of ever having to work from home before are suddenly having to work from home. There's a matter of technology. There's a matter of internet access. There's a matter of bandwidth. I was sharing with Kara and Sloan this morning. There was a point this morning at 10 o'clock where every single member of my household was on a Zoom meeting, and we were all cutting in and out because of bandwidth. So to have in the grand scheme of things, that might not seem like a major issue, but when you look at it on the personal level, there's a lot of us, a lot of people, a lot of our coworkers who don't have extra cash around. Maybe they're a single income household, so there's not a lot of extra money just lying around. Maybe they have a dual income and now one of the partners suddenly doesn't have a job anymore, doesn't have a paycheck. So any additional expense, man, this is one of the worst times to fall into that we can think of. Some people, they've got college students. They weren't expecting to be home so early. Now they're home. Now the grocery bill is through the roof. So there's a lot of things that we just have to be aware of as far as people's well-being and understanding not only just the requirements of the job, but any additional expenses. Are there ways that we can mitigate that and either provide technology, provide reimbursement for some of these new expenses that people are having to deal with? So thinking of some of those things that are going to have a positive impact on the well-being of our employees right now. Another quote that we saw, leasing may have slowed down, but resident contact has doubled at least. It's taking all our time now. Forget other deadlines and projects. And that's something I think that we need to be to level out our expectations as well. I know I've seen a lot of things on Facebook, and just from a personal perspective, hey, we've got all this time now that we're not taking kids to all their practices and sports and all these things. It's time for some major spring cleaning. And I think some of that mindset may be spilling over into our work life. Well, since we're not going on tours now we've got all this other abundant time to do these other things, these other projects, these other spreadsheets that we've been pushing off. That might not necessarily be the case because, as Kara mentioned before, we've got so many more meetings that we're noticing now. We're seeing such a volume of email right now. As this person said, my resident contact has gone through the roof as well. So being very aware of how people's time still is not their own. So if we're thinking about new projects, other deadlines that are not absolutely necessary, let's take a step back and let's be compassionate. And to go back to one of the 4 traits that Kara had mentioned earlier, have compassion on what people are really dealing with on their plate in this particular moment. We don't necessarily have free time. As much as we would like to say, well, certain things are off our plate now, well, other things have really overflowed and made our plates in some cases even fuller. So being aware of that is very, very important. I'll turn it over to Karen now to look at our last area of comments that we saw.
Yeah, we've got one final area of employee surveys that we wanted to explore with you guys. And we asked folks on the front line to talk to us about what are they worried about in terms of business stability. So some really interesting feedback that we got here. And let me just point out to you, if you haven't picked up on this already, one of the things that's so incredibly valuable about doing a confidential survey like this is that people will kind of tell you the unvarnished truth, right? So you will hear things in an employee survey that they may never tell you if you were having a face-to-face conversation or a team meeting, because it feels like a safe space because it is confidential or anonymous. So we got some really eye-opening responses in this area, and let me share a couple with you. Inform us if there's a potential we could lose our jobs. I need to plan accordingly. Please reassure if we are stable for now. So this just tears at my heart. People, of course, are rightfully fearful of losing their jobs. When you look at the unemployment numbers and what's happened in the past couple of weeks, it's happening all around us. So even if your folks are still employed, they may very well be nervous and on edge about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next week. So if there are truthful reassurances that you can offer to your people regarding stability, that's one of the things they're looking for, then by all means bring it on. I do not want you, of course, to offer any information that you don't know to be true. But if you do have truthful information to share, share it and share it frequently, because people are looking for that stability. Here is another one that's really like a punch to the gut. Leadership is hiding out in their houses while we are at work. I'd like to see them show up on site sometime and prove they care. So definitely sounds to me like that comment is coming from someone who's classified as an essential worker, right? So maybe they're a service technician or maybe they're leasing, and they are definitely feeling a real sense of us versus them. And a real disconnect between the folks on the ground and leadership. I would say it's a big red flag that they are not feeling trust in their leadership. So something to be mindful of. And in this instance, I think that leadership needs to do something ASAP to regain the trust of their employees. And then one last comment front lines is this: my biggest concern is the future of the organization and job security, but I understand that no one really knows how this will end. So this individual is really crying out for some hope from their leadership, right? And while it's absolutely true what they say in their comment that no one really knows how this will end, as a leader, you should do everything that you can to reassure your teams in terms of giving them reasons to be hopeful. So you may not be able to resolve the pandemic, of course, right? But can do is focus your teams on the things that you do have control over, the problems, the aspects of this problem that you can solve, such as how you are going to attend to residents' needs, how you are going to take care of certain things regarding employment. So let's focus everyone's attention and your own on what you can control, what is within your control, and how you can help to meet the needs of your residents and your employees at this time. So speaking of what you can do, Jen, I know you've got some more strategies to share, so I'm going to kick it back over to you.
You know, it's okay to take a moment and recognize that there's so much newness, there's so much change happening. Yeah, let's acknowledge that. And it's also okay to acknowledge we don't know what we're doing. We're figuring it out. That's okay to admit that. But it's also important to intentionally take steps, make decisions that move us and our team from that place of fear and helplessness that Kara was talking about earlier into a place of engagement and empowerment. So how do we do that? We have a few strategies that we'd like to share with you. First of all, communicate frequently and via various channels. Employees are looking to their managers and to executive leadership for reassurance. They're looking for information, and not all employees are accessing information in the same way. So we've got to look at all of the different things that are available to us and use them. So whether it's a weekly all hands call or a virtual town meeting, a town hall meeting, whether it's a weekly e-letter with the latest updates on consistent topics, choose 4 to 6 topics that everyone needs to know about every single week so people know exactly in that e-letter where to look for the information they need. Maybe it's creating a bulletin that managers can print out and post in the shops or in break rooms so that everyone who maybe isn't logging into a computer on a regular basis, they still have access to that information. Maybe there's one source of truth, whether it's a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet, and that is the source of truth for this is what's happening with this policy right now. And should consistently be pointing everyone to that source of information on a regular basis so people know where to find it. Use all of those different ways to be able to say, this is the information, this is what you need to know, to make sure that as many different types of employees have access to that same information at any given time. It's really important to make that effort and make that very clear. Another thing you can do, you know, I read this in a couple different articles from like Forbes and Harvard Business Review, where they talked about we're in a time where there is no room to dither around or to make decisions by vast committee. It's important to be able to be nimble and to be able to respond very quickly and very decisively. And one way to do that is encourage leadership to form a small, reliable, balanced, cross-functional cabinet to be able to make quick tactical decisions to real-time issues. So depending on the makeup of your company, maybe you have someone from operations, someone from marketing, someone from risk management, someone from accounting, whoever that cross-functional team members that can give a very global view and global opinion from the whole company and be able to make very quick decisions that gets disseminated out to the team right away. That can make all the difference because sometimes when you're on site and you're waiting on how do we handle this situation now, we haven't dealt with this yet, and to just hear radio silence for a long period of time is very disconcerting. And so when you're able to have leadership make swift tactical decisions and get that information to you, that helps the team feel competent, which leads to confidence, helps move them toward that engagement that we were talking about earlier. And then finally, we have to really put people first in all of our actions, our reactions, our decisions. You know, yes, we are in business to make money. We're not running charity. Yes, we all understand that. But we have to really embrace, and we've heard this countless times throughout the pandemic, that we're truly all in this together. We have to put people first because people are the ones that are going to make the machine run. They're the ones that are keeping the lights on in our communities. They're keeping our residents taken care of. And people are the recipients of the products and services that we're providing. So kindness, empathy, patience, transparency, clear direction, these are all the things that are going to be remembered when we're on the other side of this point in history. And those relationships that are nurtured and respected, those are going to be the ones that rebuild our businesses and rebuild our communities. So we have to put the people first in order to make sure that we're on the right side of history, you know, weeks and months from now. So we're going to go back to those 4 traits that Kara talked about at the beginning. We need to demonstrate on a daily basis that our organization, that your organization is worthy of trust by offering as much as possible compassion, the reassurance of stability in those truthful ways, and hope for a brighter future, because this is a moment in time and it's not going to last forever, and we will get through this together. But we do need all of these things. We need to really look to our leaderships to show us the way, step by step, you know, and side by side, we can all do this. So I'm going to turn it over to Kara to show us some good stuff of how these types of things are working.
Awesome. Yes, thank you, Jen. And I do quite literally have a section called The Good Stuff that we want to share with you guys. So Jen and I have been monitoring how property management companies are reacting right now and looking for some rays of light that we want to share with you, so you can see what your peers are doing and find some stuff that maybe you can emulate in your own workforces. So we got a few examples to share with you that we think is some really good stuff happening out there. The first one comes from Atlantic Pacific Companies, and they have, I believe they've got 2 headquarters, one in your neck of the world, woods, Jen, and one in mine here in Florida. But they posted this image on social, and it just kind of resonated with me. First of all, because I'm spending half of my life on Zoom meetings, like many of you guys. But I love that they captured screenshot of the Zoom meeting, first of all, with a ton of people, right? That's an people in one meeting. But then they posted it on their Facebook page, and you can see they use that little hashtag AP, and then they use their little mascot, Ace. So I just thought it was a really great way of demonstrating to their teams, like, look, we're getting together, we're all spending time together, even though we can't physically be together, and we are one big family working for the good of the company. They're doing a really good job, by the way, on their social, so I would give them a follow if you would, just to see what they are up to. And in a related example, here are my friends over at Fogelman. They also are utilizing the video conference for their department meetings, as I think all of us are doing right now, right? But I thought they did something really fun here. They decided to have a themed meeting. So this was a crazy hat day. Everybody was required to wear a silly hat to the department meeting and on video camera. And that is Patty Woods, who runs their training department, shared that to social to show the hat that she chose. I don't even really know what that is. A squirrel, maybe? I don't know. Maybe it's some sort of a mascot.
I love it.
But just having some fun with how our new reality is right now. And that might be something that you and your team might think is worthy of doing. You know, maybe you want to have a spirit week, for example, and have some themes going on there with your meetings. Might make it a little bit more fun. Also, I love what they are doing at the Gene B. Glick companies. They have instituted a new thing on Fridays. They call them Pep Rally Fridays. So they are live streaming different motivational speakers for their teams to participate in. And let me tell you what, who couldn't use a pep rally right now, right? I think that is absolutely brilliant. And I suspect that some of this stuff was probably going to happen in person, but it got canceled, just like every other conference that was supposed to be happening right now in this spring. You know, just can't happen. But instead of just canceling it altogether, they moved to a new way of delivering this. So they're doing it via live stream to their teams, and I think that's really, really smart. So good going, Julie Doss and your team at Glick. I think that's a really great idea, and one that maybe some others would like to use as a model. All right, here is something that's happening on the supplier side. It's an idea that I absolutely love. It comes to us from Entrada, and they are based out of Utah. And thanks to Virginia Love over there for letting me share this example with you. I'm actually going to play a video. This is a video, so I'm going to go ahead and get this one started so you can see what these guys did, and then I'll give you a little narration over it. So this is their headquarters. Where they employ about 350 people. Well, all of those people no longer can get together in that home office any longer, right? They have to work at home. So what they did one day as a thank you to the team is they put on a team lunch, and they hired caterers to prepare the food, bring it to the office, and then they had all of the team members who are now working remotely drive up to get their lunch. And that is the leadership team holding the signs and doing their silly dances and passing out the lunches to the folks as they drive by. And one thing that I thought was so extra awesome about this, you guys, is that they didn't just give them one lunch, they gave them a giant sack. See that? It's enough to feed their whole household. So it was a family lunch for everyone that came by. So they spent about 3 hours there in the snow and the cold, passing out food to their team members. And great way to say thank you to their people. Now
That's
that
awesome.
of course makes sense for them because they were all, you know, located in that same area. All those 350 people are accustomed to driving to that office. So that may or may not work for you, but I'm hoping that some of you might have, say, a cluster of communities in the same area, that it might make sense to do something similar in a centralized location where you could share the love with your people in a manner like that one. Really, really cool, Jen, isn't it?
I love it. It's so great.
So great. All right, and I have one more video. Oh, no, we don't need to see that one again. Got one more video to share with you. And this comes to us from the Perennial Properties team. And they posted this one on social. What they did is they used kind of a Burma Shave style messaging. They gave every member of their leadership team a word and then asked them to break out their magic markers or whatever to do a little artwork with their word. And then they stitched photos of them holding up their word together to make one cohesive message of thanks to their team.
I think these are so fun. It shows like
So
family,
fun.
it shows their artistic. I would be one of those people that prints out the word, and you would probably be the one that like is artistic about it.
Right. Look at that. You know, somebody cut out shapes for their word. And yeah, I mean, the message is important, but the faces, right? The humanity here, front and center, showing their frontline teams that they are grateful, that they're thinking about them. A really heartfelt message here at the tail end of the video.
And that thank you, that simple thank you, that is so important right now. When we're talking about leading with compassion, sometimes it's just about, I see you, I recognize what you're doing, and I appreciate it.
You know, absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think I would feel really energized by that video if I were an employee of Perennial. And you know what it would give me? Hope. Right? It would absolutely give me hope, one of those 4 traits that we've been talking about in this session. So really, really good stuff. I recommend that you give Perennial a follow on the social channels as well and see this video and the other good stuff they're putting out there. And Jen and I will be looking for you guys too, because we want to see how you are inspired and what you are also sharing as a result of today's session. All right, so as we edge toward the end of our time with you here today, we wanted to share this sentiment with you as sort of a wrap up. This is a favorite of mine, true story. I've actually had it on the bulletin board in my office now for about 18 years, and it comes from the author, Corrie ten Boom. And the message is this: worrying does not empty tomorrow of its troubles, it empties today of its strength. So there is certainly, as we've talked about here today, there's certainly much to be worried about in the world right now. But I hope that rather than giving yourself over to that worry, to the fear, and to the helplessness, I really hope for you and for your teams that you can try to be constructive and look for the action you can take and be a part of the solutions for your residents and for your team, and try to create that rally effect to help everyone get through this time of crisis. So that is my hope for you, and this is truthfully a message that I keep returning to again and again myself, to try to, you know, tamp those worries down and take positive action any way that I can. We have one freebie that Jen and I wanted to share with you today as well before we go, and that is this. You know, those comments from team members that we have shared with you today, they came from clients that we're working with on employee surveys. And at Swift Bunny, we've actually made this survey available for free to everybody in the industry. So you don't have to be a Swift Bunny client to use what we are calling our COVID-19 employee check-in survey. We really thought this was a way that we could help folks within the industry to make sure that they are supporting their teams as best as they possibly can. So we've put together this short, sweet, easy to execute survey, and we want to make it available to you. And if you want to learn more information about that survey, here's how you do it. You can simply send us a text So you want to text the word survey to the number 63566. So just text the word survey to us at 63566, and we will send you back a link that gives you more information about that totally free, no strings attached survey that you can use to gauge how your teams are doing and help you find out some of those candid truths that maybe they're not telling you in the Zoom team meeting calls. You know, you want to get to the heart of what's really going on with them so you know what needs they have and how you might be able to better support them. As Jen has talked about, you know, it's really important to use all forms of communication that you can. So one-on-one meetings, staff meetings, town hall meetings, but also surveys are one of the tools in your arsenal to help you get all the information that you need from your teams during this crazy time. And of course, Jen and I are here and willing to help if we can give you any information about that survey or about anything else that we have talked about here today. Sure to hear from you. So as we turn it back to Sloan for any questions that came in, I just want to point out to you that we've got our email addresses on this slide as well. So please do not hesitate to reach out to Jen or me directly, and we would love to engage with you.
Absolutely. We're here for you.
Thank you so much, you guys. I just really want to encourage you guys to take them up on that offer for that free survey, because that's just a really amazing way, as Kara said, to really get a pulse on your people. When you hear some of those comments that were said, you're like, oh gosh, like that's really tough stuff. And you're right, they're not going to say that in the middle of a manager meeting or whatever, probably. So I think that that's a great tool. I just really thank both of you for your time today and for making that tool available to our members. So you guys definitely take them up on that. We didn't have any questions come in during the session. Does anybody have a question now before we don't have access to these two right in front of us? We'd love to go ahead and answer those for you now. So we'll give a couple seconds for that. I also wanted to point out to you, because one of the comments that was made was about they worried about the cleanliness or the safety of the environment, like the shared spaces of the employees and the residents. And our webinar on Thursday, our 6 feet apart, is called COVID Clean. And it's about the difference between clean and disinfected and which of your spaces need to be which. And so that's really timely. I think we're all concerned about contamination and sharing germs, picking up germs, whatever. And so definitely check out that one if you're interested. Again, it's free for WMFA members. You can sign up for that. I'm going to drop the link right now in the chat box, but you can just get that right on our website on our events page. Okay, here's a question that just came in. Oh, it's not a question. I think they did a wonderful job. I think they did too. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that.
Great.
No question, but thank you. Yes, stay safe. Okay. That is all that we have. As a follow-up, remember, as we exit this webinar, there will be a quick survey for you. We just hope that you take that. Just 3 questions. It tells us what you thought of today and ideas for future content. Additionally, we will be sending everybody that registered for today's webinar an email follow-up, which will have a recording of the webinar today for you in case you missed part of it. Some of you kind of logged on a little bit later. And some additional resources. So watch for that to come up. Again, thank you so much to our friends at Swift Bunny, Jen and Kara. We appreciate you guys. A couple questions came in. Let's just, oh, no, thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're so welcome. Anyway, thank you again, you guys. We appreciate you. To all of you out there working hard, we appreciate you. And please let us know how we can continue to be of service to you. Definitely take these guys up on that offer and see how your people are doing out there. All right, thanks you guys. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you again on Thursday. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sloan. Thanks, everybody.